thank y'all so much. It's so great to be back in Rockwall, where we kind of started a lot of this journey when I was running for the seat that Prince was running for 4 years ago, against a man who had written bills to eliminate ESL in public schools and stood as a lone vote against victims of domestic violence on the floor of the Texas Senate. People looked at me like I was crazy whenever I stepped up to run for that seat, because it was the most conservative Senate district in the state of Texas. But the reality is that no fight worth having is easy, and that if we don't continue to take this fight everywhere in this state, then we're essentially conceding territory and saying that they're allowed to run amok on our democracy. So we waged a war against Bob Hall, where he spent $3 million to beat us in a race where we hadn't run a Democrat in 10 years. And you know what? He did beat us. But here's what we were able to accomplish. We overperformed the ballot in that race by 20 points. We beat Beto in the district. Wow. And we had huge down ballot ramifications. We defeated the last 2 JPs in Dallas County that refused to marry same-sex couples. We flipped the entire 5th District Court of Appeals, which is the most important court that you may not know about. A court that sided with corporations over people 92% of the time. And we flipped 3 seats in the State House located inside of Senate District 2. So while we didn't win it, I tell everybody of how important this type of work that we're doing is, because there's a lot of different ways to win, and it's not just always getting that W on election day, but it's showing up and fighting for our values. And I say that because I want you to know, and I think a lot of you, because you're here today, already know, that in this race for House District 114, I am the only one that has a track record of consistently standing up and fighting for our values.
That's right.
And when we have a safe Democratic seat available in Dallas County, I think it is essential that we fill that seat with someone who's been in the trenches with us, who understands what it's like to be another, and someone who has waged these fights with us for years. I grew up in East Texas with 2 mamas, and so you know I know how to fight. And when I was 11, there was a Republican legislator on the news that was talking about taking kids like me out of my home and putting us in foster care. That wasn't the only problem that we faced. When my stepmother, who was a paramedic, was hit by a drunk driver and was put in ICU, we weren't allowed inside the hospital to see her. And if she had died, we would have lost our home. And because we tried to get into that ICU room, people in town found out that my moms were lesbians. And I got kicked out of Boy Scouts, and we asked not to come back to Bible study because parents didn't want their kids around me. I tell you that because I want you to understand how important it is to me, the fights that we're fighting right now in the legislature and how it ties in with my life. What we saw in the last legislative session was anybody that was considered an other being put on the chopping block. And that includes kiddos who are just trying to live their lives and be them, right? And because some older folks don't quite understand how they operate, they got put on a chopping block and tried to get trans kids kicked out of sports and tried to get them benched from schools. There has been all-out assaults on immigrants in this state. There's been an all-out assault on anyone who breaks from what the traditional norm is, and I just don't think that that's right. I believe that every person, whether you are a janitor or you're a doctor or you're a teacher or you're a refugee that's standing on the border of Texas after carrying a baby on your back 2,000 miles across the desert, you deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And the fact that that is a political statement is pretty disgusting, because it used to not be. That used to just be how we operate. But nowadays we have to be cognizant of who we're sending to Austin and making sure that we send people who respect our basic dignity and values as human beings. And I think that you know that I'll do that if you give me the opportunity to serve in the legislature. Not only have I waged this fight in organizing, I started over 50 Democratic organizations around the state of Texas. I was the first millennial ever nominated for the Senate in the state of Texas. I've been elected official on the state Democratic Executive Committee. But you may also remember another really fun thing that I did. In 2018, when Ken Paxton stood up and tried to take away your right to vote by mail during the pandemic, I was the private citizen who stood up against it. I called my legislator friends and I asked them what you're going to do to take on Attorney General Ken Paxton. They said they didn't want to do it. There was too much on their plate. It wasn't worth their time. So I filed the criminal complaint against Ken Paxton, who was trying to take away your right to vote by mail. Got his order halted for 2 weeks, had to go to the Supreme Court and fight him. Not a lot of 30-year-old affordable housing professionals have to do that. But I stood up and did it because it was the right thing to do. And you know what? We didn't win. But for 2 weeks, people in the state of Texas got to vote by mail when they wouldn't have been able to. I think we ought to get Democrats off the defense and get them on the offense.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me different than the other people in this race. They're all nice people. They're good Democrats. There's 5 of us. But I'm the only one in this race who will take the Democrats off the defense and put us in the offense, that will actively fight to give permanent cost of living adjustments to our retired teachers, to fight for a constitutional amendment to ban school vouchers in this state, and will fight to make sure that every property tax dollar that you spend for your public schools is actually spent on your public schools and not dropped in a general fund and used to build a wall. You know I'll fight and do it because you've seen me fight and do it. And that's what I think the difference is. And so I really appreciate you guys taking time to come out today to support the campaign. We aren't going to have the oil and gas and insurance company money that our opponents have. They're the ones who've been working for them, right? I work in affordable housing. My partner Carly, who couldn't be here tonight, is a therapist for foster kiddos. We don't have, massive lobby money that we can call in to come in and help us, but we have you, and that's good enough for me, right? We've always been scrappy. We're going to keep being scrappy. We're going to knock on every door in the district. But I appreciate you giving your hard-earned treasure to the campaign. If you want to make another contribution, where are you at, Kristen? Kristen right here can help take your money. Little known fact, there's no caps on political contributions in Texas, which is disgusting. If you wanted to write me a check for $1 million tonight, you can do that. Please do. But understand that I'm going to go to Austin to make sure you can't do it anymore. But for now, we got to play by the rules that we got. And Kristen can help take any contributions you'd like to make. But that's really all I got for you tonight. I want y'all to enjoy your night. I appreciate the continued support from so many of you over the years. It's just been fantastic. And for coming out just 3 days after Christmas to help us hit our end of the year goal, of which we're about $7,000 short, but I hope we can hit it in the next couple of days. It just means the world to me that we have your support. When we get through this primary, and I have a strong feeling we're going to, we aren't going to owe anything to anyone except the people of this district. I think that that's what people in Texas deserve. Thank you guys so much for coming out. These are great candidates who are waging this fight too. They also need your help. So if you have ever been sitting around thinking, man, these people that are giving Republicans hell, I want to buy them a beer. Chunk that beer money their way, chunk it our way. We'll put it to good use on the campaign instead of putting it towards beer. But we do have plenty of beer, plenty of wine, plenty of good stuff downstairs. I don't really know what the official boat term for downstairs is, but starboard.
Nice try.
But, thank you guys
Downstairs,
for
pretty
coming.
sure.
Hope y'all have a good time.